Well, over the last 10 days, there have been unprecedented protests and outrage here in India over the issue of sexual offences against women and the poor response of the government. The protests in Delhi and elsewhere have seen students, parents, young professionals take to the streets demanding justice. We first saw this phenomenon last year with Anna Hazare's agitation. Is India's middle class, infamously apathetic, finally waking up?
My body, my city, my right. The government is failing to understand the spirit of freedom.
The government is scared of its own city.
How can they have representatives out of those? He would have just come out with a speaker and a mic, spoke to the public, and tried to assure us that yes, we are trying to do something.
We don't care anymore. We will protest, we are protesting, and we will keep protesting. Azadi! Azadi! Azadi!
So is that awakening superficial or is it real? That's our big debate tonight. Joining us on the program this evening, we have Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, the CMD of Biocon, who joins us from Bangalore, Namita Bhandari, columnist, and one of those who has been leading the protests here in Delhi and has been getting people to sign up on a petition to demand justice and a change in India's rape laws. Sociologist and author Ashish Nandi is with us. Senior journalist and activist Vineet Narayan joins us tonight. We'll also be joined by Dr. Abhishek Singhvi, the Congress MP of the Rajya Sabha. Let me ask Kiran Majumdar-Shaw first, that do you believe, from what we've seen, that there is genuinely the emergence of a new middle class that is agitated and that will not sit back and merely comment in its living rooms anymore? If it feels strongly enough about something, people will come out.
Well, I think, like you said, we have been apathetic for far too long. I think people have basically come out onto the streets by saying enough is enough. I think, everyone needs to be very cognizant of the fact that issues such as the ones we are discussing right now can no longer be brushed under the carpet. You've just got to address these very serious issues, and women's issues have always been ignored for far too long. And I think therefore there is an urgent need to use this particular ugly incident to address these very serious issues, take action, legislate, and make sure that we look at all these very, very serious issues which are societal issues in a very serious manner.
Okay, so you do believe that it is a turning point as far as India's middle class is concerned. Namita Bhandari, Justice Markandeya Karchu, who's famous for saying a lot of things that people get agitated about, said actually about these protests, and I'm just quoting him, that these are emotional outbursts that will solve nothing. Anna Hazare's agitation lasted for 15 days, but corruption in the country hasn't gone down. Similarly, the hue and cry over rape notwithstanding, the incidence of gang rape will not dip even by 0.1%. We need scientific solutions and not emotional outbursts. How would you react to that analysis?
Did he suggest
a solution?
Did he suggest those scientific solutions? I'd be interested to hear from him. Of course, I mean, it's stupid to imagine that overnight men are going to stop raping, and the issue really isn't of rape, is it? It's of misogyny, and this is not going to disappear overnight. It's not going to disappear in 5 years, 10 years, but at what point do you say enough and let's start thinking about making a change? I think if we can say that, I think these protests have captured that spirit. These protests have pricked the conscience of a nation, and maybe if we can even begin to think about change, we've made a beginning.
But there is criticism, Vineet Narayan, that much of the middle class's outrage, whether it is about the issues they choose and otherwise, is selective. It's selective outrage. It's, what affects people like us. We will not have these kind of protests if a horrible crime against a woman takes place in another part of the country, because this happened in the national capital and it was so brutal and horrific. We're out on the streets. Even in the anti-corruption agitation, there was a feeling that many had that there were double standards, there was hypocrisy, because the same middle class will still go and pay a 100 rupee bribe to a cop if they don't want a challan. So do you believe it's selective outrage?
Well, I totally agree with that. This kind of reaction, very strong reaction, very vocal reaction, which is very much highlighted by the media, is an expression by those who are connected through internet, SMS, English-speaking audience basically. Common man definitely is concerned about the plight, his plight in the country, whether it is public distribution system, law and order, developmental programs, other things. But he's not that expressive, he's not that organized, they are not so vocal that they come on stage. It's a selected kind of crowd which comes out and they express their thing, which is not a bad thing. I mean, it's a good beginning. But the fear is that there is a difference between group and a mob. If there is a mob and a crowd, then there's total anarchy. You don't know whom to talk with, whom to negotiate with, whom to argue with. Crowd, takes to the violence.
But does it always need a negotiation and talk? Because I think what Namita was saying, that this was just an expression of frustration and anger. So
that doesn't need
it was a leaderless kind of a crowd,
Except that you underline the problem. You rightly said, like more than 100 Dalit women are raped every day in this country. Not even 3 cases are reported. And see, last few days I've been on channels, people are saying police is misbehaving, remove the police commissioner, all this. But how many of us have ever bothered to find out what kind of training a policeman go through? 1978 National Police Commission prepared its report of reforms. Till today, nobody has bothered to read that or push the government to implement it. How many of us have gone to the police training colleges to find out what is the curriculum?
I'll let Namita answer that about, this whole issue of selective outrage and the points that Vineet raised. How would you respond to that?
Well, I am a little sad actually that this entire protest, I thought that this protest could actually focus on women's issues and women's issues of safety. And as Kiran said, that when it comes to women, we always get sidelined. And even in this protest, we've seen how over the last 4 days, we've got distracted with a whole bunch of side shows. We're talking about unresponsive governments, which is an issue, but it's not the issue over here. We're talking about the death of Subhash Tomar. We're talking about, I mean, we've just allowed this protest in a sense to be hijacked by a lot of extraneous, and I think we need to just refocus it back to the core issue.